you ever had those nights where you just can't sleep and you're tossing, turning? And I don't know if you track your sleep or not, but you wake up in the morning and you realize you've had 3 or 4 hours. That day that is coming, I don't think I've ever had a great day after 4 hours of sleep. And this is not a sleep episode. We're not talking about sleep necessarily in this episode, but we are talking about energy and the prioritization of it and just making it the pinnacle thing in your life. Because without energy, without being able to have that vitality, the your mind in a key place to where you can execute all the things you want to in your life, if you don't have that, it's life is not fun. I mean, you can directly correlate your energy levels with how great your life is. If you're tanked
Hmm.
out and just in that place where you hurt, you can't concentrate, life is not good. And
No.
the amount of people I speak to, Sean, and you can speak to this too, I ask them how they're doing. They're like, well, oh, I'm good. I'm like, oh, really? Well, actually, and it's
Yeah.
always the reality. We just kind of off the cuff say, oh, I'm good. But if you really dig in, well, how was your sleep? How's the nutrition? How's your energy levels? Well, it's not great. And then we can dig in and things you'll see where that lack of energy is showing up in their lives. And then the moments of your lives is your life, right? And so today we're going to talk about how to maximize, prioritize, really focus in on how you can't be at 100% all the time, right? But in this episode, we're
No.
going to talk about how to get that really high average. And that is how you have a really high average life. It correlates directly. So, yeah, man,
Hmm.
let's jump into it, Sean. You manage your energy better than anyone I know, and it's because you're very self-aware, self-conscious of
Yeah.
when your energy dips. You know you're not at your best, and you're very aware, and so you
Yeah.
you really do kind of hone in and make sure you're not doing things that require energy at that time, which is really advanced. Because a lot of people we ask them, well, how do you manage your energy levels? They would say, what do you mean? Like I wake up, I go to bed, and all the things that
Yeah.
happen in between, not really managing it. So yeah, man, I don't know where you want to branch off on this, but I'm excited because I'm going to learn a few things too.
Yeah. So on priorities for me, it's really pulling back the layers. In last week's episode was the morning routine, and we had talked about some habits to create and some tips and advice. So highly recommend that episode to listen to, because once you have that morning routine down, for me what to prioritize. And when you're super clear on what to prioritize, then now the byproduct of that is I've got to have energy to show up the best version of myself for that priority.
Mm,
One of the things that I do, Ewan, is I do 3 priorities, 2 to 3 priorities every single day. Now, before 12 to 18 months ago, I was like, man, I've got 6, 7, 8, 9 different priorities that I'm doing. Well, I soon realized I am just being busy. I'm
yeah.
not productive. I'm not moving the needle. I'm just treading water.
I'll
And
jump in there real quick with your bars because it's funny you're saying this because I have said it so many times here in the last 6 weeks, probably the last 3 months. If you have more than three priorities, you have none.
mm,
You have no priorities if you have more than three, and even three is a lot.
yeah,
Two. Now you're
it
talking
is.
business. If you can have one priority, you are going to be dangerous in life. So
Mm.
anyway, continue. I had to jump in because when you said that, I'm like, man, this is truth. Like it will show up, especially in business, for sure.
And I'm thinking about the listener and putting myself in their shoes. Well, like, okay, well, Sean, I have a lot of priorities. I have a lot of things that I need to do. And
Mm.
maybe that's true. But if you can hone in on that 1 to 2 priorities, that's going to drive the needle in these other things that you're doing on a daily basis, then everything else lifts up. And what I mean by that is, like, for me, for example, one of my number one priorities that I spend the first 60 to 90 minutes on is making sure it's in the category of leadership. So I break it down by categories. I break it down by here's my number one priority, leadership. Well, why is it leadership, Sean? Well, here's the reason, because I know I'm super clear that this is what allows me to live a fulfilling life. This is what allows me to live a purpose driven life. I'm super clear. This is where I show up with energy. And so when I'm prioritizing that leadership, I'm spending the first 90 minutes, and that could be an email to a team member. That can be an accountability text message. That could be a video, a piece of content, on one of our company pages, whatever it may be, it's aligned with that category of leadership. And it's empowering the people that are on my team, the people that are in my community, and what I'm trying to do. And this just runs congruent with allowing me to be alive, allowing me to be my authentic self. So that's my number one priority. And I get super, and this is where it allows me to really be creative, Ewan, in that priority. And so, of course, there's mundane tasks, right? There's responsibilities, there's tasks, and there's different things that I've had to do over the last 12 to 24 to 36 months, Ewan. But here's one of the things that I've learned. Over time, I've audited my time by prioritizing what's important and what's not important. And what I made in the notes here is the Eisenhower matrix. Have you heard of that Eisenhower matrix?
Yep. Is that the uh, important, urgent, not important?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So you can either do it now, you can either decide to schedule to do it, or you can delegate it, or you can delete it or eliminate it. And so for me, I've just been working on that the last 12 to 18 to 24 months is what can I eliminate? What can I do now? So I can spend that 90 minutes, those time blocks, first thing in the morning where I have my optimal energy to do that priority, that leadership, that is my duty and obligation.
How would you? Maybe you can share your because you didn't just start doing that and you were great at it right away and be able to
Right.
really dig and utilize it. Like, what maybe tips could you give to someone that hasn't done that before? Because that'd be overwhelming. Like when they're hearing this. So and you just said it's 12 to 18 months of you kind of getting better at that. Like, what's some of the maybe tips that you would give from your experience, like how someone else could start implementing this?
Yeah, no, great question. So one of the things you have to realize is like my number one tip is what's important and what's not important. When I
Yeah.
ask myself the question by auditing my time, see, when you audit your time, it's like, okay, what is sending an email first thing in the morning really important? Well, Sean, yeah, it is. I'm responding back to a prospect or a customer. Okay, but does it need to be done in that 90 minutes, in that time block, in that 30, in that for that priority that's aligned with that what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish? And so my number one tip would be to what's the important task and what's the non-important task,
Yeah.
and then where can you move that and schedule that, or even eliminate that task or delegate that task if you're a business owner or entrepreneur to somebody else, or eliminate that task completely.
Yeah. I am pretty familiar with man, if you start emailing first thing in the morning back to someone, I was thinking about, well, that's their agenda,
That's
which
right.
means I'm not on my agenda, which
Yeah.
means if I continue them on someone else's, I can't get what I need done. And so, first thing in the morning, I tend to not look at my emails anymore, which is kind of hard
That's
because I
awesome.
know there's probably important things in there. But is it more important than what I need to do to move the larger needle? It can't be. It can't be. If it's a true emergency, I often think to myself, they'll call me. They'll blast my phone. They'll call me 3, 4 times in a row if it's an emergency. If someone calls once, doesn't leave a voicemail, that's not priority. If they do leave a voicemail, okay, that's fine. I'll get to it. If they're calling me 3, 4 times in a row, well, that seems like it's gonna be pretty urgent. That one I'll probably call back pretty quick. But if I'm constantly just responding all day,
Yeah.
they're just getting zapped. Like I literally did that for long periods of time, thinking I was being a good service, good
That's right.
leader,
Yeah.
just good soldier. And I just realized I'm not getting. I look at my results. At the end of the day, I didn't get anything accomplished that I need done that are going to move the larger, longer. And that's part of the problem. Big things normally take longer periods of time, and so you're not going to get your most important outcome today.
Mm,
So it takes so it doesn't seem important, and so
right.
it's easy to put those things off. And you've got someone saying, "Hey, I need this, I need that." Well, that seems pretty urgent, but which means I'm not moving closer to my longer term
Exactly.
overall place of destination that I want to end up. Which that's what you that's where your joy comes from, in my opinion. You don't get a lot of joy being busy, but when you accomplish that big thing and you can be proud of it, and it's what you're after this whole time, then that's the difference of to me a life well lived.
Amen to that. I talk about this with my team all the time, and I really I really strive you. And one of my North Stars is to really the people that are in our community, the Level Up and Live community, in the insurance business is I talk about it all the time. And this is a journey. This is the beautiful thing about prioritization. When you find out what it and you get super clear on what it is, those 2 or 3 things on a daily basis, Ewan, that
Mm.
you're prioritizing and that it's aligned with your strengths and your values and your beliefs, that is what you're talking about. That is a purposeful, driven life. And so to me, that's a North Star. And if you're listening to this, you're like, well, I'm not there yet. All I'm simply just challenging you to do and empowering you to do is just audit your morning, audit your day. Where are you multitasking? Where are you just showing up and doing non-important tasks?
Mm.
And so audit that and then write it down on a piece of paper. This is another thing that helped me out, and I'll equip you listening to this, is when you audit your time, audit the next 7 days. I'm actually going to give some coaching advice right now because this has really
Hit it,
helped me
man. I
out.
think we'd all love it.
My coachees. And so the rule of thumb is I would say probably 7 days between now, the time that this episode rolls out. For the next 7 days, I'm challenging you, listen to this, from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed. I want you to audit your time. What are you doing? Get a pen and paper or even in notes in your phone every 30 minutes, or I'm sorry, every 60 minutes. You can break it down every 60 minutes. So if you're up for 12 to 16 hours, you're going to be filling out your notepad on your phone or a piece of paper on what you're going to be doing in those hours. And so you're going to find out, you're going to peel back the layers on what you're doing. One of my coachees here recently, we were talking about prioritization. She felt so overwhelmed and so busy and she's a super successful business owner, but she felt like she was treading the water. And so we peeled back the layers on what are you actually prioritizing? And what it came down to is she was just doing unimportant tasks that she thought needed to be done right then and there, but
Mm.
actually needed to be pushed off or delegated to one of her employees, one of her team members.
Yeah.
So I had her audit her time. She worked backwards in the 7 days. We went over that, and she found out just by auditing her time that she was spending 2 to 3 hours on social media when she would get sick and tired of being busy and overwhelmed and
Mm.
tired and fatigued. And so, go ahead.
I mean, it was maybe a couple minutes ago. I thought about it. Like, I need to bring this up, and it's what you just said. It's one of the biggest. So we have stressful moments, and those things
Yeah.
we don't want to do. We all have busy lives. We have big goals, and stress enters our life. There's always we have to self medicate, self soothe, and
Yeah.
there's a good version of that, and there's a bad version of that, and one of the
You make a good point.
sneakiest things is that phone. It's a self soother, man. That social media helps you to escape. It's an
Yes.
escape. And then what is an escape? You're not really tracking time when you're escaping. You're not paying attention to it. It feels good. It's relief. It's just sweet relief that I'm
Yes.
not thinking about that thing that was difficult or I'm putting off something I don't want to do. And it's an absolute sabotager. And it's procrastination, and it doesn't actually help. It actually makes it worse because the thing you still need to do or handle is still waiting for you. So when you do finally bring your head up and you're like, oh, at least I got away from that for a moment. Well, now time has passed and that thing's still not done. And it makes it even worse. Oh man,
Yep.
now I really feel bad about this thing. So I think it's probably one of the most, it's amazing you brought that up because I think that's huge for a lot of people. The phone is right there and
Right.
you can just pick it up and look any moment. And it's an absolute sabotager.
And you hit the nail right on the head, and that leads me into the segment 2, which is protect. And so
Mm.
when you're talking when you're auditing your time and you're like, okay, now I've audited my time, I've done it for 7 days, where can I make my adjustments? Well, I'm scrolling on social media. Well, why are you scrolling on social media? Because I'm feeling fatigued or exhausted. Well, this is what I would encourage you, and I'm going to equip you with. If this is something that's helped me in that moment, this is what I gave my coachee, is now you want to protect that time. So instead of going to social media for 60 minutes or 90 minutes, you need to protect yourself, right? Now you know why you're doing that. Oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get on social media. So you protect it by stacking another positive habit, meaning what is something alternative that you can do instead of the social media that's going to allow you to experience what you feel in that moment and what that social media does for you.
That
Like you said,
relief,
it's
that soothing. It
yes,
really, what can you replace that's soothing, that's helpful? Is it 5 minutes of breathing technique?
exactly.
Like, yeah, I think that's absolutely, yeah. Because if there's empty space, you will fill it with something. You have to, and so it might as well be filled with something good. I heard if you're distracted by your phone every 20 times a day, let's say, and it's at specific times, or let's say every 15 minutes you're distracted, as a study, and it said even if you removed the phone, the brain would still distract itself the amount of time that you would normally. If you track the amount of times you pick up your phone, there's a sequence, a pattern of how often you do it throughout the day. We're
Mm,
very habitual beings. And so even if the phone's not around, let's say you threw it away for a week,
yeah.
the first 5, 6, 7 days, you're still going to, every 15 minutes, get distracted looking for something.
Wow.
And because your phone has trained you to look, to get
Mm.
away from what it is you should be going after. And so we've trained ourselves to
Yes.
sabotage ourselves. And it's just so there, so yeah, how do
Yeah.
you break that habit? How do you then look for your distraction of breathing, which you go directly to and you look forward to it, oh man, because it feels great, and then you're able to execute on what it is you actually want, and then you actually start building self-identity, self-belief that you can handle these hard things, and these things that were hard before are
Mm.
just normal routine. Now you're looking for, like the episode we did, more problems. You want more problems, bigger problems, and
Yes.
and you want that next level of difficulty. You should really be searching that.
Mm.
And so yeah, the phone keeps you at base level. You'll never be able to take on bigger problems because you can't get past the ones you're on right now, and those seem huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's massive.
It seems like we're always fighting it too. It's like with our phones. And so I talk about this all the time with the team. And I say, when they respond, like when I'll send a Slack or I'll send an email or I'll send something, just more, because I get all my stuff done. I time block when I send text, emails, phone calls, like it's all within a 30-minute time block. And then I put it on do not disturb, and then I'll have a bunch of messages when I check it in another time block. But the funny thing is, I teach them this and they still respond right away. I'm like, I know y'all don't have the same time blocks as me.
That's funny, man. That's man. That's
You know
so.
what I mean? It's the human nature. It's the old habits. It's like we're just constantly fighting those old habits.
Well, and so you're the leader, and
Yeah.
are the boss, which we don't even. I don't consider. It's funny. I don't saying boss to you. This is not.
I don't like that word. The team
Well,
knows
it's
it.
because you're not a boss's boss and leaders leads.
Yeah.
That's the, and
Yeah.
managers manage. P.S. I've been thinking about the other day too,
That's good.
because bossing and management is not exactly the same thing. A leader needs to manage, but a leader leads and still manages, but a manager manages. And so,
Well, look, can I share something with that too?
yeah, hit me.
Role model. So a leader is going to
Role
lead, but he's
model.
also going to be a role model. I feel like he's the one that should be doing, right? And
Yes.
so it's caught, not taught. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah. Well, and to that, when there is a hierarchy, there's
Yeah.
always the leader,
Yeah.
and then there's people who are serving the mission, and
Right.
their life fits into that mission. So they're
That's
not
right.
living for the company; they're living for their lives, and
Yeah.
the leader creates a space for them to step into
Exactly.
within the business. So the leader gets the result that they want by serving the people that are in their business,
Agreed.
getting the things that they need for their life that they want to live. So it's
That's
a
right.
beautiful a chemistry that's in there,
Yes.
and saying that they're still the leader. And so if the leader reaches out to not respond back, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not being a good employee. Maybe he's going to think less of me because I'm not responding right away. Because good employees respond right away, good service,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I think it's, and you have worked on your team with this, but I think
Yeah.
it's an epidemic out there where you, you, there's a book out there. It's called Leading Up, and you
Mm,
have to, even if you're not the leader yourself, you still are a leader. You need to lead yourself, and you can lead your leadership even,
that's right.
right. It's so important to think, man, I am the even if you're the janitor of a building and at a business, that janitor still needs to consider himself the CEO of what he does, and
100%.
everybody at that entire organization works for him, right, in his mind. Of course, there is a hierarchy, but if he needs to get his job done. So as his job, he is responsible and is the CEO of his outcomes,
That's
and
right.
so he can leverage everybody in there to do that. And I think so. If the actual CEO of that business says to the janitor, "Hey, I need this done right now," and he says, "Hey, I completely understand, but the bigger picture for me is me, CEO janitor of my business, which brings equilibrium to the entire organization, as small as it is. I have to get this done first." And then they might be a conversation there, right, where they're going to come on the same page. But I know any CEO that's having a CEO conversation with a janitor, they're
Mm.
probably loving that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Having an employee bought in that much to where he's the leader. And I think that's true for everyone. Sales, man, you are the leader in your organization. And that's any good leader wants that for their people too. But yeah, in saying that, being the CEO of your position, you have to protect your time.
Yeah.
Because what if a CEO gets pulled away from his time, then the company gets sidetracked. And so it's really important that people take ownership of their energy and prioritizing it and protecting it, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of protecting it, I think a lot of the things that we're doing and what I'm learning and just soliciting advice and feedback from our community and just the individuals that are listening to the podcast and they're providing, these messages, a lot of messages and what's working, what's not working for their own lives is that I'm realizing that it's they filter, people filter, so they filter things from a podcast, from a YouTube video, from just
Mm,
one-on-one coaching, from just wanting to level up, and they filter it into their own lives and not try to get too overwhelmed and multitask and try 15 different priorities. That's why that one or two priorities that you're trying to, so maybe it's not business like with what we're talking about. Maybe it's your fitness in 2025.
yeah.
Maybe it's you're prioritizing your health. That's one area. Okay, what is going to allow you to line for your health and fitness going into 2025? What does that look like? And pulling back the layers there and then protecting that. And so what I mean by that, when I started my journey for health and wellness and was at 220, 225 and have dropped down in 25, almost 30 pounds of weight to 190, 195, I loved buffets, Ewan. I loved Ryan's. I loved Golden Corral, bro. Like,
You did.
dude, I don't know what the Chinese buffets.
Why did you like it so much? What was it that you like?
Because so my family, we were raised on just country cooking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we would eat the chicken fried steak, we'd eat the fries, we'd eat the mashed potato, everything, okra. Like there was no type of food I didn't like, and we would just keep going back. My dad always drove it home to us: go back for seconds, go back for thirds. You're laughing because you're like, what was we think,
Yeah.
And so in my mind, and then when I learned about buffets like Ryan's, Golden Corral here in Conroe, I realized I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Like, I'm eating all this food and then I'm putting this on repeat on a weekly basis. Well, so my point here is I realized I have to protect, right? That's segment 2. I have to protect what it is that I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And so the point that I'm driving home here is if I want to lose weight in 2025, if I want to be fit, if I want to compete, if I want to show up the best version of myself, then I'm going to have to protect myself from buffets.
Yeah.
That's the point there is I have to protect myself from buffets. And it was funny because we were driving home from church on Sunday and we were driving past Golden Corral here in Conroe. And every time I drive by that place, I'm like, just in my mind, I literally could taste the food. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to go there, Ewan. I want to go there and I want to get their chicken fried steak. I want to get their mashed potatoes. And I just want to divulge. But I
Yeah.
know what that's going to lead to. So I have to protect myself. And instead, I do a healthy alternative, right? It's like, nope, I've already made my mind up. This is what I'm going to eat. And here's why I'm going to eat it because I know how I'm going to feel 60 minutes, 90 minutes later. So I think protect is once you prioritize my health and fitness, then you must protect it because if you don't, you can prioritize, but if you don't protect, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I've heard it many times before, but I've heard it a couple times here recently. When you're healthy, you can have a million problems, but when you're unhealthy, you only have one problem. When you're
So true.
sick, you only have one
So
problem.
true.
That's all you care about. All the other priorities when you're really struggling with your fitness and health, all those other things just disappear. You're like, man, I could be dying here, and then that's all your focus, all your attention is on that. So you really just don't want to get to that place. You know what I mean? Whatever it takes to not get there, because look at what you trade. Look at what you're not focused on leveling up. You're just trying to survive now. And
That's
that's
right.
not. No one's enjoying that situation. So that's what's at stake. That's what's at consequence. And so yes, to be able to prioritize and protect your health is number one. And
Yeah.
okay, it might be more expensive to eat healthy nowadays, right? And everyone's heard this before too, I'm sure. But what you will save by spending on good food now, you will save 100x on the medical bills that you'll have come due.
Mm.
Even as simple as just your immune system being stronger. Since I've been working out and really being more health conscious the last 12 months, 18 months, I've only gotten sick once, maybe 1.5 times. And I say half because one of the sicknesses, normally I would be out down and out for 2 weeks. But
Yeah.
this time I was only down and out for like 6 days, which is very rare for me. Normally I get sick 3, 4 times a year. I
And
just
what were
would
you
have got
thinking about
kids.
when you were sick the 6 days?
Oh, what was I thinking about when I was sick just for that short period of time?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to get back to business. I hate being down and out. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
just
And
one
also,
thing. I want to get healthy.
yeah, I want to. That's exactly right. And so I was doing all the. I remember in the past when I'd be sick and like, well, I'm down and out anyway on the couch. I'm just gonna eat like trash and comfort myself. I'm bored even, and I'll just eat whatever.
Mm,
And now when I say it's like, no, it's you have to really take it serious because there's a difference of 2 or 3 days of getting back to it, and then maybe the
yes.
residual, maybe it's an extra week of residual where you're not suffering nearly
Mm,
as much, and so that impacts your life. And if you're doing that 3 or 4 times a year, that's quarterly. So you're gonna get hit sick once every 3 months, and then really you're down out for 2, maybe up to 3 weeks, and then you've only got 2.5 months before you're sick again.
mm,
If you get sick 3 or 4 times a year,
yep.
that's you're just never getting ahead.
Yeah.
You're just treading water. And so yeah, really focusing on that health and immune system, staying healthy, and that's going to impact the overall longevity of how you are when you're in your 70s and 80s. Like what happens today matters. It does
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't feel like it. It's incremental, but it's the incremental. We don't think like that. But the incremental differences of what you do today will show up no matter what. 100% fact, it will show up when you're 80 if we make it that long.
Yeah, man. It reminds me of, and then we'll go into our last and final segment as we wrap things up. It reminds me of when I was reading in John Maxwell's book, is developing the leader within you in 2.0. And he said he recently just went to a class reunion. This dude's like 70 or 80, right? And he just
Yeah.
went to this like 50-year reunion. He hadn't been,
Wow.
I think this was the first time he's ever went. He said he walked in there, and of course, he made a couple of comments, and he said he didn't recognize anybody, of course, right? Because it's a 50-year
Yeah.
reunion. And he said as soon as he went up to somebody, they started talking about themselves. They didn't ask John any questions, and he spelled all this out in the book. And then they went through the night, and he realized like 5 different things. I don't remember the things that are in the book, but a couple of the things that I took away was that what he's protecting is his mindset. So for
Mm.
him, when he's around other people, he looks at, because if you study any old person, right, whatever you consider old as far as age, but for him it was in the 70s or 80s. Most older folks, they're slunched over, and they
Yeah.
talk about them. They talk a lot about themselves and their past and their history.
Yeah.
And so John's like, he learned a life lesson. He's like, I'm going to protect myself from that mindset.
Yeah.
It was a mind-boggling moment for me because I'm like, that is so unheard of. He
Yeah.
said, instead, I'm going to ask. I'm going to be the older person that asks questions. I'm going to be the
Yes.
older person that shows up with my shoulders back, not
Yeah.
slunched over. I'm going to be the person that shows up with vitality. I'm going to be the person that does the uncomfortable things. And I thought it was just so brilliant and just so foreign in this day and age. And so what are you protecting listening to this? And I asked myself the same question. I'm like, where do I need to protect? What do I need to eliminate? What do I need to make sure that I'm doing on a daily basis by auditing my time so I can, and here's the final one, perform. That's what
Yeah.
it all comes down to, right? You know this. You're an
Performance.
achiever. Number 3 on the
Mm-hmm.
Enneagram,
100%.
prioritization, protect, and it's time to perform. So
Yeah.
whether that's health and fitness, whether that's public speaking, whether that's running a business, whether that's your marriage, any area of life, where are you're able to perform by that third segment. So I just think that's so powerful. And that's what it's allowed me in the last 12 to 18 months by doing these different things. Now it's time to perform because I have the energy, I've prioritized, I've gotten clear. And of course, it hasn't been perfect, but it's by just making those small little adjustments. I think over time, by putting in the reps, is going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great structure just to have those three things, very simple. And there's a
yeah,
number of different structures for different areas of life, but just having those prioritize, protect, and perform is something you can kind of rinse and repeat in your mind. It's a
exactly.
reason to even, well, what am I doing right now? What part of that structure am I in today at this moment? Am I in the protection mode? Am
Yep.
I in what do I need to prioritize? Am I working on that, or have I got those two handled? Am I performing now? And once you start seeing the return on that and the impact, and you're building the identity of that,
Mm.
that's leveling up. and living your
Yes,
life, right? And even as you said at the start, it takes time to get there. So this is
that's right.
not you jump in and everything's perfect right away. This is going to be a trial and error all the way to the day you do die,
Yeah,
because it will never end. Because things change over time, and as you level up, you're going to be looking for those new problems that you want. Yes, it's just a great framework, and just to take stock. What am I prioritizing? It's just a great question.
that's
Because
right.
if you don't ask, like, I mean, if you're listening to this, when was the last time you asked yourself, what am I prioritizing right now?
Yeah,
I happen to know what I'm prioritizing right now because it's just
yeah,
becomes so evident that if I don't, I get pulled off my agenda, and I can't afford that because it's going to impact my performance,
that's right.
and I can't have that, So yeah, ask yourself those questions and just check in, and maybe you just do something slightly different, just
Yeah,
slightly. Like you're not revolutionizing your life right now. It never lasts, never works. Just slow incremental progress, 0.1% every day, 36% at the end of the year, and in 10 years with compounding interest, you're just a different human being.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's vital. I'm so glad we you thought of this topic today, man. It's a good one.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to recap, make sure you're prioritizing what is that one thing that you can prioritize, focus in on that, protect that at all cost, and then so you can perform at your best and just take one day at a time. Baby steps, like Ewan said, 0.01% is going to compound over time. It's all about the reps. You got this. You can do this. We believe in you. You have to believe it if you want to achieve it, right? So you've got this. Share this with a friend. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and effort today. Let us know what you liked about the show. Leave us a Google review. I've learned recently that reviews are very powerful. That's how you get up in the charts. That's how you level up in the charts. So we're trying to get to more audience that make a bigger impact, bigger splash, bigger serve in 2025. So make sure you share this with somebody, write us a review, and subscribe. Level up and live.
Level up and live.